Hey everyone, my name is Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm bringing you my February wrap-up. So I've read in total 34 books. These are the only physical books that I actually have with me. The other ones are mostly e-arcs and audiobooks, so just wanted to show you this pile. I'm not going to talk about all of the ones in the pile in my little favorite book section, just because I'm trying to keep the notable book mention section to only 5 books. But if you want me to talk about more books in the future, just let me know. But I just wanted to show it to you because I don't know, it's kind of nice to have a little stack here. The majority of the books I read are e-arc. So I'm going to start off with kind of a general overview about my month of February first. So as I said, I read 34 books in February. 2 of these were books I needed to read for book clubs. So the first one was Secret History, which I read for an IRL book club, which isn't meeting IRL anymore because of the pandemic. But the second one I read was Winter Song. I read this for the Backlist Bookworms chat for February. If you didn't know, Backlist Bookworms is a book club Vicky and I co-host, where every month we read one previously published book, normally one that have been out for a while, and we also try to stick with diverse books. So this was our pick for February. I'm not exactly sure what our pick for March will be, but as soon as I know, I can let you know. And if you follow any of the links below on my social media, I will be sure to let you know what book we pick. So I read 2 book club books, and that's were those 2. And I read 26 e-arcs. So that's what I mean when I don't have, a nice stack to show you. They're electronic advanced read copies, so I just don't have them to show you. I'm very sorry. If I had them to show you, I would. And I read 6 audiobooks and 6 buddy reads. So when I was counting up the amount of books I read this month, I was kind of this is overwhelming, right? So at the end of February, I just kind of felt like my brain was complete mush. And as I was posting my last Instagram post for February, I was kind of oh, I'll just see how many books I read in February. And then I was oh my God, I read 34 books. So that kind of just made me realize why my brain felt like mush at the end of February, because essentially it just is mush. It just is. So the reason why I read more books than normal, and also more books than I wanted to read, was because I read 6 audiobooks and 6 buddy reads. So the buddy reads I normally kind of add on top of my schedule, and in February a lot of them just kind of randomly, organically popped up. And so, I jumped on them, and this is what happens. And then the 6 audiobooks I read was because I'm trying to do a lot more knitting, because I have some projects I want to finish. And so I listened to audiobooks while I knit. Ergo, 6 audiobooks. So let's see if I can remember all 6 off the top of my head. So I read 400 Souls, which I adored. I would highly recommend it, especially if you read Stamped last year and wanted kind of a follow-up or kind of a logical, kind of similar vibe. Definitely 400 Souls. I listened to The Secret History and audiobook, which I don't know if I would recommend because I felt the narration didn't really bring a lot to the audiobook, and normally that's kind of why I'm listening to audiobooks. I read Ring Shout, which was a fantastic audiobook. The audiobook presentation of that was amazing. The battle scenes felt super realistic, and they just felt very detailed, and the emotions were very intense in the book. I listened to Be Taught If Fortunate, which is this novella that I got as a gift from Laura. Laura blogs at Green Tea and Paperbacks. This was a late birthday present, and late by the post late. And I listened to this on audiobook. So I actually didn't listen to or read it in person. I really loved the audiobook. It was so great. And it was also just another example of a great audiobook presentation. And then, let's see, how many did I have? 400 Souls, Fortunate, Secret History, Ring Shout. I also listened to, you're just watching my brain fail in real time, I also listened to The Rape of Nanking, which is one of the 12 Friends 12 books that I read this month, and so that was a very intense read. I filmed the part 2 of the 12 Friends, 12 Books, which you won't have seen yet. You'll see that later in the year, but I would probably recommend reading that in person, like in print, instead of an audiobook, just because the trigger warnings are really intense in that, and so listening to it, especially while I'm like doing dishes or, you know, knitting, was just a lot. And yeah, that's definitely what I would recommend. And I also cannot think of the 6th book that I read. Oh, I can think of it. Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet. I loved this book so much. I guess I'm kind of cheating because I'm talking about books I really love, but not in the like books I loved section. But I really loved Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet. I got this from Libro FM as part of their influencer program, and it was just such a fantastic book about family and identity and passion, and the audiobook was so good. It was a dual narrator, and so dual narrator reader people, and so it made both of these point of views come alive in such a fantastic, fabulous, and emotional way. And like, I think the last third of the book, I could not stop listening. I basically just had to stop everything I was doing and just listen because I was so immersed. So those were the 6 audiobooks I read, and the 6 buddy reads I read. So I buddy read The Firekeeper's Daughter with Fana. I buddy read 2 books with Kate. I buddy read The Unbroken, and I buddy read She Who Became the Sun with Kate and Shalaya. Then I buddy read Pet with Hannah, and also The Ones We're Meant to Find with Hannah. And then I buddy read Kinda When We Were Infinite with Vicky. It was supposed to be a buddy read. I was so behind on that, so it was basically just both of us reading at separate times. And then I buddy read Once Upon a Quinceañera with Vic and Candy, and I will leave the links all below. So for my TBR Progress, which is the next section I want to talk about, I actually read all the books on my February TBR. It was, and I paid for it. Like, I paid with it in my brain cells. But I read all of them. I was making a list of all the books that I had read, and then I realized when I was checking it that I read all 10/11 of them. So you can find all the titles in my February TBR video. I'll link below. But I'm actually really happy that I did read all of the books of my February TBR. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that of the 34 books I read, 71% were by Black, Indigenous, or people of color authors or main characters, and 38% of them were with characters who are queer or authors that are queers. And oftentimes own voices, so both match up, but I didn't write like which ones were own voices, which ones weren't, so that's my ratio. I'm pretty happy because over 50% for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And also I read an Indigenous book this month. Or actually I read 2 Indigenous books this month, which is like better than last month and also better than most months of 2020. And I'm over my 33% queer book goal. So in general, February was really great. When you read 34 books, I mean, what do you really expect? Like, number-wise. And then, as I mentioned kind of earlier, so I read 3 books in the 12 Friends, 12 Books challenge thing I'm doing. So in total, that brings me up to have read 5. So roughly half, and it's only the 2nd month of the year, or the 2nd month is only passed. So that is super intense. As I mentioned, I read To Be Taught of Fortunate and The Rape of Nine King, but I also read as an ebook A Memory Called Empire. This was Kate's recommendation, and that was fantastic. It was a book where I felt like I didn't have enough brain cells. I don't think I have enough brain cells, period, but also B, in February, definitely did not have enough brain cells for all of these political betrayal and maneuver, like treasonous books. I just didn't have any brain cells to spare, honestly. This is gonna be like the theme of February. February, the month of no brain cells. For my Shimmering Worlds challenge, I actually read 3, and I've only read 3 of the prompts, or like of the challenge at all. So I read 25% because it's 12 books. And the 3 ones I read were Ring Shout, which is Travel Between Worlds, Elet Soe, which is Special Powers, and Catherine House, which was set on Earth. But I don't actually really know if I would necessarily categorize this as fantasy. It is in the prompts on the Storygraph, but for me, it was like much more nebulous, and so I would also count Pet as fantasy for sure, and so Pet also fits that prompt. So I feel pretty good about like the total 3 out of 12. I'm going to try to read more books, obviously, for the rest of the year, but there are still 2 categories I'm missing. I don't know what I should do, and that's books translated from another language, and also books with, like, meddling gods, essentially. So I'm excited to try to figure out books to fit into that, but the rest of the ones, I'm pretty confident that I'll read them. I think in March I'm going to try to read The Chosen, If Not Beautiful, if I can get to it, and that does fit into the Shimmering Worlds Challenge, so I feel good about that one. And then finally, I want to talk about some of my favorite books that I read in February. The first one has to be When We Were Infinite by Kelly Loy Gilbert. I love Picture Us in the Light so much, and to keep it super sweet, When We Were Infinite is just this fantastic book about friendships, like toxic relationships, needing to be kind of in a good mental headspace before you can be in a relationship, feeling like your friend's problems and like your friend's personal issues kind of rest on your shoulders. And it was so emotional, and it was like, please read the trigger warnings before you read it when it comes out. But it was just so emotional and just so heart-wrenching, and I don't honestly know what I expect from Kelly Loy Gilbert, because that's kind of how I feel about all of her books. And so it just kind of matched the expectations in my head, and 5 stars. Vicky and I both really loved it. Next is Hannah Khan Carries On. This was my pick for the romance read favorite of the month. It is a You've Got Mail retelling / re-inspiration, whatever you want to call it. I love You've Got Mail. It's a nostalgic, like, film that my parents really liked, so then I watched a bunch growing up. And so all, like, the You've Got Mail comparisons that I've ever read, which is only this and I think in Tweet Cute, have really high expectations for me, and this one nailed it. I was crying when I read Hannah Khan Carries On. The Islamophobia that Hannah and her family handles, and like her community handles, like brought tears to my eyes. The inspirations of You've Got Mail, like the elements brought into the text of Hannah Khan Carries On, were fabulously executed and also really well updated for like a retelling, because in You've Got Mail, at least the film version, I don't know if there are other versions, they use like AOL Messenger and you hear the dial-up noise all the time, so you know it's updated in this one. And also in general, the family was so strong in this one, and Hannah was such a fabulous character, kind of trying to figure out how she should make a stand, specifically in representation, right? Is it worth kind of like selling out and talking about the cliched ways that other people want to relate to your identity versus telling the authentic kind of genuine stories that you have in your heart and in your community? And so for all of these reasons, I really loved Hannah Khan Carries On. The next one has to be The Unbroken, which I have here. The Unbroken was another one where I felt like I didn't have enough brain cells, but it has such complex characters where it's like, you know, those characters that make mistakes and you're like, oof, you're making a mistake, but you're so relatable and endearing, and like just you feel so real to me. And so that was definitely how I felt about the characters in The Unbroken, because they were so complexly flawed, humanly relatable, I guess is how I'll say. And another reason why I really love The Unbroken is that it takes us a deep dive into colonization and the struggles and like the mindset of being a colonizer in one perspective, because it's dual perspective, but also in the other mindset being like caught between how do we work with colonizers and like in this specific position that one of the main characters in, kind of being hated by the colonizers and also hated by their own people, and just like the whole discussion of colonization and especially the characters within this system was so fabulous in this book, and I cannot wait to read more. I'm just so in awe of this book, essentially. The next one has to be The Mirror Season by Anna Marie McLemore. I knew I was gonna love it because I've loved all of Anna Marie McLemore's books, but The Mirror Season is this heart-wrenching, all these books were super heart-wrenching, but this heart-wrenching portrayal of sexual assault and trauma and survival, like all of those things basically, and this idea that all of these things that can happen to us, they can like break us down into broken, fragmented pieces, and this kind of journey of putting ourselves back together and not necessarily forgetting the past, but kind of moving through it, moving forward into it, not like putting it behind us, but realizing that it's a process you go through every day and things are going to change and morph. And so it was just so intensely emotional. It was intensely personal for me, and it just was amazing. It also made me cry, and I don't have enough words anymore to describe how much I love Anna Marie McLemore's books. You'll see it in the review, but I love their books so much, and this was just, this has to be my favorite book of theirs, period. And the final one is The Ones We're Meant to Find. I finished this one like 2 days ago, and I'm not okay. I buddy read this with Hannah. It is thrilling and thought-provoking. Those two words are how I would describe The Ones We're Meant to Find, because it's a sci-fi dystopia, but it so wonderfully discusses climate change and environmental destruction and the future and ethics of humanity and technology. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is how intensely it delves into issues of sisterhood. So the relationship you have with your sister and all of those, like that push and that pull, and you kind of contrast and are compared to, and that really intense love kind of bond, but also sometimes resentment. Like all of that was so beautifully discussed. And then in general, it just was such a thrilling mystery. Like I think at 23%, I have a specific note where it says, at 23%, I cannot stop reading. I think I read this in basically 2 days, and I think in one sitting I read like 50 or 60%, because you really just cannot stop reading. And it's something where I finished and I immediately wanted to dive back into it. Like I immediately wanted to reread it, because it's like when you watch those mystery kind of films and you're just like, oh my god, how did I not see all of these different things that are happening, and you immediately want to rewatch your favorite film again. That's how I felt with The Ones We're Meant to Find, and so I'm so excited. One of my most anticipated releases of 2021 lived up to my extremely high bar expectations. I really love Descendant of the Crane, which was Joan's first book, and so I just had the biggest hopes for The Ones We're Meant to Find, and it was totally delivered upon, and so I'm just so happy about that. Oh, I did also want to mention that my lip color is this M Cosmetics Infinite Lip Cloud in the shade Lotus Blossom. Oh, sorry, not Infinite Lip Cloud, that's the other formula. True Gloss formula in the shade Lotus Blossom. It's one of my favorite pigmented glosses, because as you can tell, the color payoff is really, really lovely. Moroccan Sunset's also one of my favorite colors from this formula. And it just feels really creamy. It doesn't feel sticky at all. It's not transfer proof, so just know that. But it just feels so creamy, and the color is just fantastic, and I just love them so much. I've been following Michelle Phan for like ever at this point, and so when she launched M Cosmetics, and when she launched like this specific launch, which I love all of her lip products specifically, I just fell in love. And so I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because I keep forgetting to put it in the description box below. That brings me to the end of this February wrap-up. I hope you had a really great time, and please let me know what your favorite books of February were in the comments below. Hold me to it, but I'm not gonna read 34 books in March. Like really, please do hold me to this, but I just can't. I can't do, like, I don't have enough brain cells to keep losing them, essentially. As always, all the book links and the people I mentioned and my links will be in the description box below. So I hope you had a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!